this ourselves.
They're coming. It's gone to be.
Where is everyone?
All right, hey there, survivors. Welcome back to the Apocalypse Post. I'm your host, MakeShift, and I've actually got a couple other co-hosts joining me today. We're going to be discussing a lot of really fun stuff. As you can see from the title of this episode, we're going to talk about Squid Game. We're going to talk about Dune, and we're actually going to talk about another project that I just watched this afternoon, as well as a few other little news bits. But I want them to be part of the discussion, so we're going to bring them in right away. Guys, welcome back to the show because they've been here before. Boss Cap and Mongo. Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Howdy.
Thank you guys so much for coming back. How is your getting back to the real world-ness going? As you can tell, mine is.
Yeah. Wasteland was amazing. It was hard, but it was good. I had a great time. I was in the pit for a few shows, and I saw this big heavyweight pushing people around there. So I had to go show them how the big boys play.
You're talking about MakeShift, right?
That pit was so much fun. Oh my god!
Yeah,
did you guys get to see the video that I pulled from that?
I did.
No.
I did. Yes. Yeah. That was a fun pit, and seeing you jumping around in there was awesome.
I think I was in there for 30 seconds tops, and I had so much fun. I had my camera on a gimbal, Boss Cap. You know, my little A7S2. But yeah, I brought it on the gimbal. It took a couple hits, and then suddenly, without me even knowing, it actually flipped over on the gimbal. The gimbal just gave up. It was like, nope, can't. But the camera kept rolling. So I just I flipped the video upside down, added a little glitch effect in there, so it could, you could still see what was happening. But it was so cool. You get that point of view of the mosh pit and all the big guys that were in there, and honestly, it was fun. It was fun.
Well, it was really funny too, because Thomas was on the edge filming, and I saw him, and he was just enough in the pit that I was like, "Oh, is he playing too?" So I slammed into him, and he's like, "Thanks, ass." And I was like, "Oh, my bad, Ed."
Yeah, Thomas. That's TK. Thomas Kearns. He's one of Wasteland's photographers, and he got some great shots.
He got some great shots. Yeah, that I ruined a few of.
And I haven't put this out yet, Mongo, but I actually have footage of, I don't even know who it was, but someone went to hit you, and you did not budge, and the guy fell over backward. He didn't fall down, but he just kind of fell back,
just bounced off.
It was just really funny. Yeah.
That's funny.
And you get these heavyweights in the pit pushing people around. Someone's got to show them up. So
yeah, I just like that I can make eye contact with somebody above all the dust cloud.
Right? Yeah.
For those that are not aware, Mongo and I are both 6'7" So
yeah,
just more guys of Wasteland that make me look tiny. But I gotta say. And I don't know if this was every band at Wasteland, because I don't really mosh that much, because I usually do have a camera in hand, but I just got really into it. Anyway, but the attack mosh pit is super polite. Guys are bumping into each other. You're getting into it, but people are really respectful of the space. I think there was actually a kind of a bubble that was forming around the camera, and I was like, nope, unnecessary. I'll come crash into you.
It was definitely one of the more polite pits I've been in. And the second someone went down, the pit stopped, which was kind of cool. The pit stopped. We all rushed to that person, picked him back up, slammed in him to kickstart the pit again.
It's giving him forward momentum.
Exactly. And there was a lot of guardians on the outside of the pit too. Just people watching the pit. And the second someone would go down or lose their footing, somebody was grabbing them and pulling them to the side out of danger and stuff, and it was cool. It was a nice, we were going hard, but everyone was friendly, so to speak.
Totally. Yeah. But I got to say, about 30 seconds of that dust, and I think it was more the dust than anything, and I was like, I need to get out.
Well, one of them, it was fear-injected suicide machine that Attack was playing, and the dust got so thick that I couldn't see until somebody was jumping at me, and the strobe was going. It was badass in the sense of it was like a movie where I couldn't see anything. It was like the fog of war was real, and then next thing I know, somebody's midair lunging at me, and I'm shoulder checking, and I'm getting hit from behind, and I don't know where I am at the in the pit, and that was and then the dust settles when the song's over, and everyone's just out of breath, and
so great. Oh my gosh, I love it. And they Attack always puts on a great show. And I was just telling you guys, I'm working on that music video for you guys listening. Me and Tim talked about this in our post Wasteland kind of what do you call it? When the army when the army guy comes back and they need to what do they call it?
Debrief.
Debrief. Yeah, me and Tim's debrief after Wasteland. We talked about how we shot that music video. Let me tell you guys, it is coming out so good.
Good.
So we burnt down a piano.
Fantastic.
That's all.
Wait. I mean, we shot this in Mexico. Is the official
travel to location?
We flew out after Wasteland, got down to Mexico, and this music video is going to look good. Anyway, I got a couple other news things to share. First off, Hierophant Grotch, who has also been a guest on this show, just got married to her partner Clive, which is awesome.
Oh, fantastic! Great for them.
Yeah, they had a
Saturday.
Yeah, do you know where they went?
No, I don't.
They went to Good Springs, California.
Really?
Yeah, the location right in Fallout. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep, they had a waste.
The gear. Like I saw pictures, and she was wearing her Fallout, her vault suit, and Clive was dressed as one of the, like, not Adam Katz, but like the leather jacket and the kind of greaser look.
Yeah, and they had a smaller wedding, but everyone was dressed in their Wasteland garb, and I think they like took over a bar without letting them know they were coming. So pretty cool stuff.
Fantastic.
True Wasteland fashion.
Yeah, but Fallout fans will recognize Good Springs as, I think, the starting point of New Vegas, right?
I believe so.
It's
I think
like
so.
the first place you go to. So congratulations, Hierophant Grotch, and come back on the show, would you? Next up, this is another Apocalypse Post project, but the Wasteland Weekend 2021 map is coming along. The pre-sale is going great. If you guys haven't had a chance to look at it, find the post on my Facebook page at the Apocalypse Post, because we have a full, like, this thing's huge. It's like billboard huge. I can do a billboard in photo quality of this overhead map of Wasteland City, and you guys need to check it out. I'm selling them for $15 right now. That won't last long because I can barely get them printed for that much. But if you guys are interested, jump on there now, because I'm doing the pre-sale. Then I'm going to get them printed. Basically, the more I sell, the lower the price can go. So I might be able to keep that price. Anyway, you guys need to check it out because it came out awesome. I had hopes that it would look good, and it just does. So anyway, the map's doing great. And then the last little bit of news is I'm still looking for people to submit stories for Legends of Wasteland City. So these are going to be like narrative stories. If you've got short stories or like lore stories of your tribe at Wasteland, check out last week's episode where I kind of teased the Schofield Drifters one. We did a chapter of their story. It came out so fun. I had a couple of my friends do the voiceovers, and I've already got a couple submissions. So this is happening, and I just need as many different Wasteland tribes that do like lore, do short stories to submit, so we can kind of do this whole interwoven comic book of this radio play. Anyway, did you guys get to check it out? I don't know if you have yet.
I have not yet. It's been crazy, but I know I've heard you talking about it, and I am interested. And now that I know that you've got like voice actors and stuff, and I'm here for this. I am here. For this.
Oh, you need to do a voice too.
Oh yeah, I'm down. Yeah. I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to play Mongo in the Mongo story?
Come on, I had put forward. I auditioned for that, and I felt like I did a really good job for the part of Mongo. Come on, guys. Like,
actually, you know what?
So you're really just going to shut me down?
Is we should do a mock audition for Mongo, but you have to do the Mongo story from the Dukes After Dark smut book.
Oh God! Yes. I remember when I heard that for the first time, and I was like, "Oh God, where is this going?" And then the ending was just perfect. I'm not going to spoil it because it's worth the read.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
And actually, when I don't have enough material, I'm just going to read one of those from the smut book.
Do it.
All right, guys. Well, we're here to talk about some new post-apocalypse movies and TV shows and films and stories that are out there. I know you guys are here for Squid Game and Dune, but I did want to bring up one that I happened to watch this afternoon called Awake. It was on Netflix. It came out this summer. And if you guys are looking for kind of a fun romp, have either of you guys seen this yet?
I have not.
I have not.
No. Okay. So I'm going to encourage it, and I'll just go through this really quick. But the premise to this one is there's basically like an EMP that takes out all electronics, but at the same time, everyone alive loses the ability to sleep.
Huh.
Like they literally can't go to sleep. And of course, without the ability to go to sleep, they start getting delirious after a day. They start hallucinating. They basically start to lose their mind. And so it's kind of an interesting thing because there's no virus killing people, but you can only survive so long without sleeping, right?
Right.
And so people, the system breaks down. Especially, I don't even know if they needed to have the electronics break down because, I mean, with everyone not being able to sleep, like society was breaking down really quick, and just all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, right. But yeah, as far as like, I don't think this was a huge budget post-apocalypse film. Not a lot of them are, but minus a couple like of those "why the hell would you do that" moments. There was actually a really good storyline on this one. It had a good storyline, some really clever filmmaking, and right in the beginning, it had one of the best car sinking in water, so you need to escape sequences I've ever seen. They did it in like one shot.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Or at least faked it to look like one shot,
like
but
a single
it was
take?
great. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was either a single take or a fake single take, but it looked great.
That's cool. That's
fantastic.
Yeah. And it kind of started with, this isn't really a spoiler because it's so early in the movie, but it started with a car. The EMP thing happens. I don't even think it was a bomb. It just happened. But the EMP thing happens, so cars are kind of like out of control. They get hit with one, and it has that thing where the car like comes into the side out of nowhere. Except that felt a little bit off, not as powerful as I've seen. But then once the car's in the water and it does not cut away, it's just so cool. It looks great.
Oh, fantastic!
Well, I know what I'm watching tonight.
Nice. Yeah. And
guys, let's reconvene. Let's go watch it real quick, and we'll do it.
I know, right? Yeah. I should have given you guys some homework to do. Yeah, Mongo, you would have had to do it at work, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I would have.
And by the way, I see you sipping, so I'm going to open this up. What are you drinking there?
It's a hazy IPA. Actually.
Wait a second. I'm having a hazy sour ale.
Oh, very nice.
As of
good
right
taste.
now.
Good taste.
And Boss Cap?
He's drinking.
Oh, I'm literally just drinking the like Costco session IPAs. Like I just put two of them into one giant glass. It looks cooler than it is. I promise.
Well, that looks like a normal size glass to me.
Okay.
It's just to scale.
It's a pint to everyone else.
Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. Well, very good. Well, of course, I don't think it's going to come up, but War Chief Grimm drinking game is totally in play, so we'll drink now for that.
Oh, don't worry. I had plans, so
perfect. Mm-hmm. All right, so I think that about wraps it up on Awake. It's definitely worth your time. Not all Netflix movies are, and some of them are definitely like just put it on in the background. But I think this one is actually worth checking out a new story type for post-apocalypse stuff.
Fantastic.
All right, so right around the time we were getting ready and hitting the road for Wasteland, Netflix dropped a brand new show out of South Korea called Squid Game. Have you guys seen this one?
Yes, I have a few times actually.
Awesome. This I was not expecting. So I saw about a month of all these rumors, right? All the little things people were saying, some of the visuals that were popping up. Some screen caps, some memes, some jokes. I had no idea what to expect. What'd you guys think before you headed in to see it? Boss Cap, go first. What'd you think like Squid Game was going to be before you saw it?
I was a little uncertain. I was kind of picturing what was the name of that original Japanese movie where they like abduct people and then they all have to fight in the it's kind of
royale.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so they abduct these people and they all have to fight in like a battle royale. That's actually like literally what I thought this was initially. And then, like literally in the first episode, it gets way deeper than that. It's not just about dumping people into a battle royale. It's like you get to know the main character. You see like how terrible he is and how shitty his life is, and then he gets dumped to a not quite battle royale, but like an all for a large game that's sort of like whoever wins.
No kidding. Mongo, what'd you think before you saw it?
excuse me. I actually enjoyed it. I had just come off of watching Alice in Borderlands, so I was looking for the next. If you've not seen that, that's another one that's
I
very
have
similar.
not.
It's similar to Squid Game, kind of, but not really. But it's another game show thing where contestants play and they die, and it's. But so I had just come off that, so I was jonesing for another show to watch, and I came across this unbeknownst to me. Like, I hadn't seen any of the memes, I hadn't seen any of that, so I was like, oh, okay, and I put it on, and I was pleasantly surprised, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, like watching the trailer, I was thinking, like Boss Cap was thinking, oh, it's just another murder game show, and yeah, no, it was a lot deeper. There was a lot more to it than just everybody killing each other for money. So
Right. Yeah, and
it's like if someone dies, and then they'll do a quick monologue about their character, and then someone else will die, and someone else will do a monologue, and this was quite a bit deeper than that.
Yeah. So it hit the number one viewed on Netflix, like the day it came out. Like, it just blew up. And I got to say, I got to give props to Netflix, because even though they are definitely in a quantity over quality type of business model, they have brought to the United States more international films than I think most of us had ever seen before Netflix was a thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and
I would say so.
What I like with like Korean films and Japanese films and all this is it's kind of nice to see like a different take on, like, you get so used to American horror movies and American love stories, and they follow the same pattern in the same genre. So it's really nice to see a completely different take on something that we would just glorify, gratuitous violence. They do a good job of keeping you entertained and the entire time. It's not just a little bit of love story, then action sequence, then a little bit of plot line, then action sequence. They intermix the whole thing, or like the story, the entire time. And yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and I think episode 1, of course, on shows like this, you need to have the hook, right? So so by the end of episode 1, they've played the first game, and I'm not going to do spoilers quite yet. We'll do spoilers a little bit later and give a little warning. But after episode 1, it actually slows back down, and they dive deeper into some of the characters they've introduced. And I thought that was a really cool way to do it, was to get you hooked and then build up these backstories a little bit more. I really enjoyed that. Which kind of felt a little reminiscent of the better years of oh shoot, I'm blanking on it right now. They crashed the airplane in the middle of nowhere and mysterious island. The smoke monster.
Oh, Lost.
Lost. Yeah. Lost. It was very reminiscent of Lost in that sense, where you got that hook, but then they spent a lot of time actually developing characters so you cared about them, which was good.
Yeah, but this was actually good, unlike Lost. So
Lost was always like a failed promise, right? It was like they were always telling us the best is yet to come, and it was just all downhill the whole time.
I mean, the main problem is that, like, I watched the first season, and in the season finale, it kind of did a bad thing that I think happens in some mystery shows, is that they never answer any questions. They just introduce more questions. So, like at the end of the first season, I'm like, oh, I have no answers to anything that I was curious about. So it was very unsatisfying on multiple levels.
I think I'm one of
I wanted to
three
like
people.
it.
I think I'm one of 3 people that hasn't watched Lost. I watched the first few episodes, and then the second a polar bear showed up on a tropical island, I checked out. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the polar bear. The writers forgot about the polar bear. Let's put that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly why it's stuff like that. Like, why is a polar bear on this island? Oh well, we're just never going to answer that. You're just going to have more questions now.
Yeah, you know what? It was Lost where I kind of developed this idea, because I'm a filmmaker, so I'm always kind of like analyzing things. And with Lost, that's where I started figuring out that certain shows, certain movies are doing what I started to dub blender writing, as in, you've made your smoothie and now you can either drink it. Oh, it tastes like garbage. Let's just throw something else in. So they just keep throwing in new ingredients, trying to make something palatable, but it just keeps making it worse and worse and worse.
The thing I did appreciate about that franchise was the the work they put into it outside of the series, and they had the websites and the fake travel companies that you could actually go and research, and all the extra hidden stories, and they put effort into it, just not where it needed to go.
Just not, good or reasonable effort to make a good show,
Totally. And getting back to Squid Game, I feel like everything was really well thought out. There was some really good foreshadowing. Again, I'm not going to spoil them yet, but we'll get back there. The characters, I feel like they all had a good reason to be there, and minus all the red shirts. I'm going to call them red shirts, but the fodder there was there was a good amount of fodder.
I mean, you have a killer game show. People got to die. Like that's just
exactly. I can't
kill all the main characters in one episode, so
You can. It's called Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And what else? Yeah, I think it was just really well produced, and it was kind of cool because this felt like something that may have existed in Korean film before. Because sometimes Netflix will go out and find like a gem that we just haven't seen, and then they'll take that property and kind of reintroduce it. This one came out worldwide at the same time, so we all get to experience it together along with South Korea, which is really cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Netflix, man. They're just when you have the money that Netflix has, and you can just do whatever you want.
Well, everyone, only $15.99 a month. Go ahead and sign up. Go to netflix.com and
yes, share your passwords. That way, it's only $8.99 a month. You must be changing your batteries, huh, Mongo?
Yeah. It's those wonderful batteries.
Yeah, you got 20 minutes out of them.
Yeah, I did.
I'm gonna send you a USB webcam at some point.
I never even thought about plugging it directly in, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Anyway, we can still hear you, so we're gonna keep going.
Good.
The other thing that kept coming up, and I read several articles on this, is there is a proper way to watch this. Now, the dubs is how I watched it. How did you guys watch it? Overdubbed or with subtitles?
Subtitle.
I did both.
Oh, good for you guys, because from what I understand, the overdub was wrong.
So were the subtitles, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the subtitles were also off.
Yeah. There's a lot of nuance that we as native English speakers and not Korean speakers at all, we're missing a lot. And, I saw a bunch of stuff where Korean speakers were saying, you're missing a lot of what's going on here. I didn't feel like that. It did feel a little cheesy at times, but I felt like I had a story, even if it wasn't the original story intention, right? But yeah, somebody said that not the closed caption, but the subtitles is the best way to go. And the closest, the redub. What's interesting is Netflix has this rule where they actually want redubs to be as comfortable as possible. And so they will kind of change the timing so that the words can move with the timing of the original speaker. Does that make sense? And I noticed that a few times.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so they try to say words when the mouth is moving, and that doesn't always fit with the original intention of the line.
Sure.
Okay.
I also learned that anybody can write and submit subtitles for Netflix.
What?
I didn't. They don't have to approve them, but like if you take the time to write out the subtitles and you can submit them, and then Netflix can choose to use your translation or not. So it's not a professional translator that is there converting the subtitles. I didn't.
What?
Yeah, I didn't know.
That's very interesting. Like, I'd love to, eventually find like someone who has like a very good rating on, like if there's someone that has a good rating that has a really good subtitle. I would love to watch that actually. That like can introduce maybe some of that context that we're missing as English speakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens. That's interesting because pirated movies will sometimes have multiple sub chains, right?
Yes.
You can pick your file, and people will submit different subtitles, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, maybe that'll be a thing someday. I've never stolen media
before over the internet. MakeShift. What are you talking about?
I was in a different country when I watched mine.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was in Iceland. But yeah, that's actually a really interesting idea. Is because people can submit subtitles to me on my YouTube stuff, and I've had people do that, which is really cool. So that would be really cool if people could do that on Netflix. But I guess they're selecting one, one file to send out, right? Not a bunch. But yeah, that's a really interesting point. I'm curious about that. And honestly, like the whole idea of redubbing is pretty wild, because I also feel like I recognize voices from like what is it, Money Heist?
Oh yes, and the professor, his voice has been used in several different videos. I recognize it immediately.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a French series, another heist, like a museum heist, something like that. But yeah, I could hear like the entire cast from Money Heist in it, and I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of fun."
That's another great show.
Yeah, it sure is. It's really good. The newest season. All right, let's talk about it real quick. Money Heist. The newest season, I feel like was just moving too fast and too uncontrolled. They lost a little bit of the magic of the control, which is their like Ocean's 11 superpower, right?
Right. That was in the first two, when everything felt like it was pure chaos and out of control. That was part of the plan. And you're right. I didn't get that vibe with this one. Like things were chaotic and
Yeah, it definitely felt like things were out of hand, even for the smartest planners of the heist, right?
The smartest Duke, yeah.
The smartest Duke.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do I have anything else to say before we get into spoilers? All right, guys.
We're going into spoilers.
We're going into spoilers. I'll try to mark when the next bit starts. So if you don't want to get spoiled, skip ahead to that. I'll try to get it in the show notes for you. But for the rest of you, the night is dark and full of spoilers. Here we go. So let's see. This isn't really a spoiler, but it's still in the spoiler area. I thought of like Maze Runner and Hunger Games when I saw this. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Except those for Americans are teenage movies. Well, they're about teenagers, and they're kind of for teenagers, but also an adult audience. This one, it had that same amount of like candy coating, but it was definitely made for adults. Because when you're talking about like, all right, so Katniss was fighting for survival, and there was no way out of it. But now the people here in Squid Game, they're there because not because they want to be, but because they choose to be. And it's very adult themes. It's all about debt, right?
It's all about debt, or
exactly. It's like the characters they're not good people. They're all people that have like that basically run their lives into the fucking ground. With one or two exceptions, but for the most part, they're all deadbeats. Who are they're middle-aged, desperate deadbeats, or at least like late 30s deadbeats.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it didn't have to only be that, because they were also making commentary on like people from different strata. Medical expenses kind of came up a few times, although none of our leads were dealing with medical expenses. It was their families that were.
Sure. Well, I would say the main character, actually, it wasn't his medical expenses, but he went in because of family medical expenses.
Exactly. Yeah, but you're right. He was just a deadbeat. He was just, kind of a little bit lazy and a little bit
he just liked drinking and gambling and the good things in life. And as a result of that, as a result of all those wise decisions he made of partying for his 30 some odd years, he had no profession. He had racked up debt all around town, and now his mom is sick, and now it's like, well, what's your only option to get your mom out of this?
Let somebody slap you in a subway for for some pocket change.
Did you notice that every one of the contestants? All right, so the contestants, in order to get talked into doing this, one of the representatives of the show meets up with them. They play this game. I don't even know what it was called, but you basically take these two paper cards. They're folded up into like, what was that thing we used to?
It was almost like pogs.
Yeah,
are you thinking pogs? Yeah.
It's like giant paper pogs.
South Korean pogs, yes.
Exactly. And the idea is you take yours, well, the other person puts theirs on the ground. You take yours, try to slam it really hard to flip theirs over. If you do, you win. So this is the game. But did you notice, guys, that he had 2 cards, one red, one blue? Every one of the contestants chose blue.
I did not.
Interesting.
Is that a Matrix nod? Is it?
It could be. I don't know.
Also red and blue is generally used for. It's been used in most American or I guess Western fight sports. For example, in boxing, there's red and blue gloves, and wrestling, they'll usually be given something. So red, a red and blue contestant is a very common Western theme.
Well, and actually, the Korean flag is red and blue and white.
Good. That literally might be it instead of the thing I'm thinking.
Yeah,
that's funny. Well, kind of like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, right? That was red and blue.
Yeah, it was red and blue, exactly.
Yeah,
red and blue for contestants in Western cultures is that's kind of the default colors.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But someone brought up the idea that if you chose red, you would become not one of the contestants, but one of the workers.
Oh.
And that's how they would recruit the workers, which I thought was kind of interesting, but they never touched on that in the show.
No, they didn't.
It's sort of a black hat, white hat situation. From calling back calling back to Westworld, or
Westworld?
I mean that's even kind of a theme that extends beyond that. But they really nailed on in Westworld.
Oh yeah,
literally black hat, white hat.
Yeah.
Couldn't punch you in the face that more.
Do you want to be good or bad?
Choose now.
Yeah. So of course. Biggest spoiler of them all is the old guy, number 1, turns out to have been running the whole thing. Did you guys know that? Did you get any hints of that along the way?
I actually did not. I was actually pretty impressed.
Nice.
I actually would have liked because it was a little Deus Ex Machina for me. It was like this thing that came in and was like, oh, by the way, let's flip the table on this. There wasn't a hint. I didn't pick up on a hint of it. I would have liked a little bit of a hint so that way when it came through, but maybe I'm dumb. Did you guys get a hint on it?
I got a couple along the way. And one, when the old guy gets shot after losing, marbles, that was one of very few deaths that they panned away from. And I was like, ooh, the filmmaker in me knows if you don't see someone die, they're not dead.
That's a fair point.
Right. But they hit it really well by focusing on the main character and his reaction, which was actually pretty well done. They didn't just pan off to the side,
I took that as I don't want to watch this old guy that we've fallen in love with, because he was a great character the whole thing. I was like, nobody wants to watch this guy get his brain violently blown out. So
especially one that's going through dementia.
So I thought maybe that was just a respect for the audience type of a play.
Yeah.
So.
I was on the Mongo train on that one. I usually look to Mongo on how to think and feel. And as the only person that I see eye level to, I'm like, okay, you know what?
I gotta say, I was looking out for it because he was so different than everyone else in the game. And I'm pretty sure he was the only one enjoying red light, green light. But they kind of showed all right, so he's got cancer, he's dying, he's trying to enjoy his last days. This is the most excitement he's ever had. They definitely put it into that box, but I was like, he's enjoying this a little bit too much. Plus, he knew the rules really well from the beginning. He knew the stakes.
Sure. Yeah. The part that threw me was when he voted no. And they gave everybody the decision to vote yes or no to keep playing, and he voted no. I guess that was the deal signer for me. I'm like, he's just an old guy that's like,
yeah.
Too funny. But it's interesting. They seem to know that people would want to come back. And that was what made this show so interesting, was just like Lost, they all decided to come back.
On
their own accord.
I think one of the very important things that emphasized is that that they follow the rules. So for example, they lay out all the rules in the very beginning, and the skeptic in me is like, well, how do I know these guys with guns are actually going to obey the rules?
Right.
And so one of the things to me is like, hey, if everyone wants to, if a majority vote can call a quit, then hey, we can quit. And the fact that they honored that, I think, really emphasized to me is like, hey, if you win, you will get money. To me, that sealed the deal. It's like these rules are ironclad.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I felt was like obviously it served a few purposes. It showed that everyone that was desperate enough to do this was willing to come back and do it. But it showed that, like, hey, yeah, we're going to kill you if you fail at these games, but we respect the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, everyone that came back knew the stakes. Before, when the game, because they had played red light, green light first before they took that vote, so people didn't know the stakes. And once they knew the stakes, they still all came back. Because
so crazy.
At that point, that just solidifies them all being deadbeats and that level of destitute that they would rather risk their lives for the money. So,
and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if the game makers ever let them know that it would have to come down to one winner. Do you remember?
I actually got the specific impression when I was watching it. I'm like, oh, there can be multiple winners.
That was
that's the distinct impression I got. And that's one of the things that actually threw me off about this, is because it kind of didn't follow some of the preset rules in my mind that maybe I'm accustomed to from Western filmmaking. I kind of figure like, oh, hey, there's going to be teams of people, and like maybe a team will win. Like I actually anticipated, or what I thought was going to happen was that, of course, like main character, I'll just call him Deadbeat. Deadbeat, and his not quite love interest. I figured the two of them would win. I figured it would probably be the two of them on a team winning.
Oh yeah, that's definitely what I was hoping for. I think that's what a lot of us were hoping for.
I was just like, oh, so like what I loved about this is it defied my expectations. Is I'm like, okay, so here's how it's set up. Is we're gonna because it's Squid Game, right? They explained Squid Game. Okay, the final game is Squid Game. It's a team game, so it's going to be main character. So it's going to be Deadbeat. It's going to be love interest, and maybe they'll have another friend with them. And then the opposing team is going to be Thug, and then maybe like one or two assholes, right? Like,
whoever he dragged with him. Yep.
Yeah, whoever dragged with him. And I was thinking this is going to be the final showdown, but no, this really defied all of that, and I was super happy to see that.
Yeah, and it felt like at almost every stage, not only were they defying our expectations, but also the characters in the show. So each game, they would come up with a new expectation, right? So red light, green light, everyone's on their own. But everyone can win. You're playing against yourself. It's not a team sport. Yeah. Later on, they introduce the 10-person teams for tug of war. And then the characters are like, okay, now we're in these 10-person teams. And then, of course, the next game, they say, you're not in your 10-person teams anymore. Pick one other person to be a partner. And so they kept getting rocked, and we as viewers kept getting rocked as well. And I thought that was a lot of fun, and it definitely made you feel very empathetic to the characters as for what they were going through.
Yeah,
that was fucking glorious.
Yeah, that rocked.
Sorry,
that rocked
go ahead.
Too. No, you're good. You're good. Because you're right. They had the Honeycrisp game where they weren't necessarily teams. They just had you pick one of four. The guys had kind of teamed up on their own because they knew each other. Well, the two guys knew each other, and then they befriended a couple others, and so so you kind of got that mindset, and they had everybody line up in 4 rows, which was kind of its own team, but not really. And then the tug of war. Now you've got that team mentality, and so there's 2 games in a row now in my mind that like, okay, so we've got our groups, and then like Boss Cap was saying, you started getting groups of people. Like, this is the good group, that's the thug and his henchmen. And I had also had that anticipation of multiple people could win, because they said whoever makes it all 6 rounds wins the money. They didn't say whoever's the last man standing. They just said whoever makes the last 6 rounds. So I went into it expecting the team thing as well. And then so the next round comes, and they're like, all right, teams of 2. And I was like, okay, what's this? This is going to be a good one. And then it was that when they dropped that twist that only one of the teammates gets to live. And then they showed like that husband and wife like look at each other, and I was like, "Oh, that's fucked." Like this,
that was fucking glorious. Like it was amazing. Like,
that was one of the character storylines I wish I would have seen more of. I wanted to see more of them playing against each other, because during Marbles they showed a lot of different pairings, but they did not show the married couple. They just showed the aftermath that the husband was the survivor. And
Rory would have been.
I totally agree with you with that, because I would have loved, because like that's an amazing conversation for a married couple to have, like, which one of us is going to walk out of it here, like,
right.
Because I know if it was me and my wife, I'd be like, hey, here are my marbles, like,
right.
And
like-
that's the other dynamic, is if that couple was having problems, are they going to try and con each other? Are they going to, like, here's all my marbles, and then you keep one, and then that could have been an entire episode in itself.
No kidding. Yeah, I wouldn't have minded seeing more out of those two. But all right, so I do kind of want to wrap things up on Squid Game, but let's just go really quick and just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down on 5 different things. And if you want to, you can throw in a quick point. But story, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up. I enjoyed it.
Yep, thumbs up from me. Directing, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
I'm an electrician. I don't know what directing is. Thumbs neutral.
Thumbs neutral.
That's fair. The acting, and for if you watch the dubs, include the dub acting.
Thumbs up. As someone that watched it with subtitles, I felt like, even though I was watching on subtitles, it was like the pain, the back and forth, especially on the marbles with the main character and the old man, or with Deadbeat and the old man. I thought it was great.
Yeah, thumbs up for me too. I was enthralled the whole time.
Yeah, and I gotta agree. I'm gonna give a thumbs up on acting, even though the dub every now and then was obviously wrong and it kind of cheesed things out.
Sure.
They did a great job. I felt really connected to the story. Very rarely did I feel pulled out because of the acting. And obviously the original actors, I don't know Korean, but they sold it even in a different language, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the cinematography, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up for me. It was simple, but super effective.
Yeah. Thumbs up for me. It was a joy to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of really cool color. And the costumes and the lighting and everything was just great. Thumbs up. And last one, music. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
The music didn't really grab me, but never was there a point where I felt like the music was bad or took me out of it. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, I don't remember the music, so I don't know if that's a good or not. But like, I wasn't pulled out by it, so I guess I'm going to do thumbs neutral.
The music did its job. Is how I like feel like it. Like it wasn't like I wasn't like sitting on a cloud with like cherubs there like playing the music, but it was it was adequate for the show.
And I'm going to agree with you guys. I'm going like either a thumb sideways to a thumbs up. The music did not stick out, but there were a few moments where like they went into an extreme slow-mo, and I thought the music was helping that rather than hindering it. Where I did notice the music, it was spot on. All right, and then last thing we'll talk about Squid Game. Give me the 1 or 2 things. If did anything bother you? Is basically what I'm trying to say. What would you fix?
There were. I was going to say there was a few things that didn't get answered, and there were a few things that, like the brother reveal. I saw that coming a mile away. That was, and then they punched you in the face with it a few times, and then they just they just didn't do anything with it. That was kind of a gripe with me, and there was just a couple little nitpicky things like showing the tunnel with all the bombs, and then you never see it again, and just little things like that. So but no, I don't. Overall, I don't have any real gripes about it.
Yeah, Boss Cap.
I'm having trouble thinking of things I would change. Like I was about ready to jump in with some things I would change. I'm like, no, but that's a terrible idea. So they're much smarter than me. So
they did the best thing. Yeah, for me, same thing as the tunnel, which I think the tunnel might show up in like a season 2. But maybe. There's 2 storylines they started, or at least hinted to, that they didn't even touch once they did it. And it was when the girls went and snuck into the air shaft. All they did was get a hint about the honeycomb game. Mm-hmm. And then they never went back. And they even showed that the vent was left open. Like the screw wasn't all the way in. So they never got discovered. They never took advantage of being able to sneak around again. So I was kind of a little disappointed that just went away. Mm-hmm. And then same thing, the gangster guy, the one that was like in a mob. He got a bunch of the thug, as we call him.
Like, that's literally like what they called him in the subtitles, was the thug.
Thug, yeah.
He when he was on the outside, he convinced the other guys to go back in, or at least that he was going to go back in order to like rob the prize money. But he never made any attempt outside of just doing the game to kind of circumvent the game and just steal the money altogether.
Sure.
Well,
But he did-
so I would say like he wanted to do that, but then he got backstabbed by his guys, and then had to jump
Yeah.
into the river. And so then he's like, so yeah, I will push back on that a little bit. I don't think that he wanted to do that, but then he literally couldn't because his thugs were like, hey, we got paid out by the big boss, and we're just going to steal your organs now.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I'll give you a point back for that because you're absolutely right.
Bam!
He was trying to convince
Boss
the rest
Cap
of the crew.
1,
Yep.
Mongo 0, MakeShift -1.
Mongo, you're in second place.
Players will be eliminated after this podcast.
If I feel
All right, guys.
one bullet touch me.
We are going to take a very quick break, and we'll be right back with our thoughts on Dune. See you in a sec.
Things are hard out there in the West, but the last thing you need is a bout of radiation sickness bringing you down. That's why I created radical new treatment called concentrated fallout therapy to help you build a tolerance to those pesky ionizing particles. Here at Dr. Prepper Labs, we gradually up your dose of X-rays, gamma rays, and quasi-stable high atomic weight particle exposures, so your body will never be caught unprepared in radioactive storm again. Dr. Prepper, fight fallout with fallout. Concentrated fallout therapy may cause mutations, disfigurement, or early death.
All right, guys, we are back, and the rest of this episode, minus one little thing at the end, is going to be all about Dune because it's worth the time, and it's definitely worth the watch. You guys both saw it, this weekend, yeah?
Yep,
That's correct.
Yep, I saw it this weekend.
Fantastic. What'd you see it on? Did you go to the theater, or did you watch it on streaming?
I went to the theater. I had it was one of the movies that when I saw the trailer, I was like, this is a theater only movie for me. So
Good for you.
yeah.
And Boss Cap?
I saw it in theater myself and was not disappointed.
Oh, man, I'm jealous. I watched it on HBO Max. And
There's
and then my roommate came home right as we started it, so we had to turn the big speaker off and listen to it through the TV speakers.
Boo.
But here's the best part of it, guys. I'm going to watch this movie again. I don't watch most movies more than once. I'm definitely watching this one again. Watching Dune for the first time reminded me a lot of like when I first watched Star Wars or Jurassic Park or any of the movies that you just watch over and over and over again. It's this whole world, and you can't wait to dive back in, even if it's watching the same story.
this one too. Seeing it in theaters, when you've got the 25.1 surround sound speakers that those theaters have, they did a great job with the audio. Yeah, with the way the music was, and then when the music wasn't, and the sound effects and the dialogue, and they did. Yeah, see, I recommend seeing it in theaters. Like nothing against seeing it at home in the comforts of wearing pajamas, but people wear their pajamas to the theater now. So
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. But so getting to Dune the way we saw it this weekend has been a long road. So as you guys know, the book came out in what, 65?
I think that's what it was. I think
Is that right?
Sounds like it.
It's been around for a minute, right? And they've tried to do this a few times. There was the David Lynch version, which
65.
came out.
Yep.
Yep, 1960. Yeah,
When did the David Lynch come out?
that was 1984.
Okay, 1984. And from what I understand, they did a really good job with it, but David Lynch wanted it to be a 3-hour movie, and the studio made him cut it down to 137, which some people think that the version that came out was a bit of a misfire for Dune just because it didn't really get into the depth of that world.
That world is so involved. It would be like trying to condense all of the Lord of the Rings into an hour and 30 minute
Yeah.
movie.
I mean,
Like,
it's a 3-inch paperback. So they basically made a 2.5. They took a 3-inch paperback and condensed it down to a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, and part of that kind of goes with this Dune is actually labeled Part 1, which is great because they're going to take Dune the book and turn it into a 2-part series. Although the second one's not locked in yet. So I don't know when they're going to make that
Really?
decision, but hopefully it's soon.
So the reason being was I can never pronounce the director's name of this one. He wanted to see if the box office numbers were worth doing the second half.
That's so weird.
And then him and HBO actually are disputing at the moment because HBO, by releasing it the same day it opened, killed a lot of the box office numbers because half the people stayed home and watched it. So the box office didn't do what he was hoping it would do. And so there's a quarrel right now between the director and HBO to try and get the information of how many people streamed it on launch day and stuff to see, because he was saying he doesn't want to take the time and effort it took to make this movie if no one wants to see it.
Right.
So,
If it doesn't bring in a giant pile of money, he doesn't want to do it. So, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why nothing's locked in, because they were waiting for numbers, and then HBO kind of hosed them with the stream. And
yeah, and it's so weird because this is something I've heard happening to like a lot of directors, a lot of actors. They get into these contracts where a lot of their money actually comes from the theatrical release. I mean, it's a bit of an older release model now where it goes to the movie theater first, and then 6 weeks later it goes to rental, and then a month later it finally starts going to broadcast. But streaming like disrupted all of that.
The pandemic disrupted all of that too.
Yeah, exactly. So whereas streaming has been a godsend for smaller budgeted movies, it can actually be just the opposite for these big budget movies because the money's just not there in streaming. Because rather than paying, the $10 a ticket to go see this thing in theaters per person, now we're paying
$10 a ticket. What theater are you going to? Let me know. Like,
hey, 2003 called. They want their ticket prices back.
It's been a minute since I've been to an actual theater. Shoot, I don't even know. What are they charging now? What'd you guys pay?
It was $22 for me.
No. Oh, but you saw like the IMAX version, yeah?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
But
mine was upper teens.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty expensive. Okay, so instead of getting $20 a ticket times a family of 4,
you're getting $10 a month times a family of as many as people can fit on the couch.
Yeah, you can easily drop $100 in the theater these days. So easily.
Yeah. And HBO did not do what Disney's been doing, which is on their big releases, they actually charge an additional rental on top of your subscription.
Correct.
To kind of like, I don't know, maybe just split the difference a little bit, right? But I think it's getting so much good response from everyone I know. I mean, I'm also friends with a lot of post-apocalypse and sci-fi fans, but hopefully the general public's also enjoying the heck out of this.
Tell us more about that.
Wait, you?
No kidding, right?
You have friends that are into the post-apocalypse?
Wait, what is this post-apocalypse?
Yeah. Well, Dune wasn't even really a post-apocalypse either, right? It just had the look and feel.
It takes place 20,000 years in the future. Essentially, they said 10,000 whatever, but that was actually 10,000 years after whatever giant thing happened on Earth.
Oh,
so so it's not even AD and BC anymore. It's 10,000 ADD or AAD.
Oh, so they stopped. They
Christ
gave up
came
on
back,
Jesus.
so it's actually after death. So
after death. the HCB, when he came back. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, so it takes 10,000 years after whatever cataclysmic event changed how we keep time.
Oh, gotcha. Now, it seems like everyone, like there's a lot of humans. So this is all humans that have like populated other planets and then kind of created their own societies there. That's what these different houses are. Yeah, and then I noticed that there were non-humans as well, right? Am I just making that up?
I think you're making that up, unless I'm dumb and didn't catch it. Or like, I mean, one could argue that some of the people that have used the spice along terms are non-human, but I think everyone was originally human that is in the movie.
Yeah,
you are right in the sense that there are android computers. Like the actor, I can't think of his name right now. He was the like lieutenant or the security of House Atreides or whatever. He was actually an android.
Did we know that?
Not in the movie.
Well, so whenever you see any of the people that their eyes roll back and go white,
Oh,
those are
Oh, yeah. What'd they call
computers.
them? Mentats, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But not
Yeah.
in the movie. You don't know they're a mentat in the movie.
Right.
Yeah, they never spell that out.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is
But
pretty
yeah,
interesting.
And so I thought they were just like long-term spice users, but it's also been 15 years since I've read the book. So
Sure. So yeah, anytime their eyes roll back, they're computing essentially, or they're
Got it.
recalling, or they're Google searching their brain.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah.
wild. Okay. But to kind of bring it back, it is a post-apocalypse to is it the Fremen? How do you pronounce that? Yeah, the people
they call
actually
it Fremen in the movie.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, it's definitely kind of a tongue-in-cheek freemen, like
Oh,
right?
They weren't even subtle about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are the natives. They are the freemen. But yeah, I think it's kind of a post-apocalypse for them because now they've been invaded, their whole world's been disrupted, and then they've had to fight back against these oppressors. So for them, it's post-apocalypse or just apocalypse. I don't know. Which one would it be?
I mean, well, I don't think
Doesn't
they've ever
matter.
had an
Dystopian
apocalypse. Like they've literally just lived on this harsh planet for, and then they kind of established that they have this culture, right? That's gone back hundreds of years. So they literally just live in this very harsh environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the environment, I mean, again, absolutely beautiful. The filmography in this was just gorgeous. The desertscape was great. The CGI was pretty on point, minus a couple small things, barely noticeable. But yeah, absolutely stunning. Great storyline. Trying to keep up with all the families in the beginning. I think they did a pretty good job of setting up the world because when you jump into like fantasy, especially, it's really hard to figure out who's who, what's going on, who's the friendlies, who are the bad guys. But I think they did a pretty good job of laying that all out, right?
Yeah,
Especially if for the generation, the new guy, the young millennials and the Gen Z that didn't grow up in 1984 and watch the old Dune with the old David Lynch Dune. This is a whole new world, a whole new everything, minus the Star Wars aspect. But stolen. Anyway. But yeah, so I agree. They did a great job of handling all the different houses and all the different races and so to speak for this. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. There was a few times when I had a really hard time understanding it, and maybe it was just that I wasn't listening at full volume anymore. But did you guys notice any like mumbling
Did you
or
have the
weird
Korean
words?
subtitles on while you were watching this one?
that might have been it.
So that was the number one gripe I've read, and I had too, was that the audio, sometimes the dialogue was really hard to understand.
Yeah.
It came off kind of mumbly, it came off kind of bassy. That was the only audio gripe that I agree. There were certain scenes where I was having to like turn my ear, even with the beautiful 28.3 sound of the movie theater. No, I agree. There were certain parts that the dialogue was hard to hear, and so.
Yeah.
But I did track that up. I watched the movie Tenet. That came out. They did that on purpose, so I kind of chalked it up. Because he was talking about how the dialogue is not the important part of the movie. The movie itself is the important part, and the dialogue is just something that happens in it. So my brain just instantly categorized it as, the dialogue isn't actually important in the scene. It's more of what the scene is about. So I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah. And one thing that I thought that they did a very good job of, and this is something that is, I think, best captured in theaters, is that so it kind of takes a page, or like Hans Zimmer, like kind of takes a page out of the what happened in the most recent Blade Runner, where there's a lot of deep bass throughout it, and the theater you really get to feel a lot of that, and like it works very well when you see this massive city-size starship kind of rumble over, and with the widescreen and with the bass, you really get to like feel and see it. And so this the movie felt very massive while I was in the theater.
Yeah, and I got to say, even at home, the movie felt massive. There was a really great feeling of scale, of just the size of the planet, the size of some of the characters, and
size of the sandworms.
The size of the sandworms. Yeah,
the sandworms were freaking huge. And by the way, do you think that Tremors was like, Dune's got sandworms? Maybe we could do sandworms.
I also I thought about that as well. So,
absolutely. I mean, well, Sarlacc pits and Yeah, when you got your first glimpse, I don't know if this is. Are we doing spoilers yet or no?
Shoot, are you guys ready for spoilers? Let's just get into spoilers. You guys, we all like the movie. Go watch it, and here come the spoilers.
So I mean, it's not so much. I mean, it's a spoiler, but it's not a spoiler. That first scene when you get your first glimpse of the sandworm coming after that spice collector, and like you see it running through the dunes, and then you see the ground start to turn into like quicksand.
Yeah.
And then when everything starts to sink into the middle, but then it just keeps sinking and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you see the teeth, and then you get to see all the rest of the teeth, and you're like, oh shit, that sandworm can swallow a city. like holy shit. They did an awesome job at showing the true scale of those things.
Right. Here's a question though, and this is a bit of just a weird sciencey question, but on this planet where there's sand, like no plant life, and you have 40,000 humans that all know how to avoid sandworms at this point, how are these things living? What are they surviving on? They're obviously using a lot of energy to move through this sand, and there's not a lot to eat.
I think that it's so. There's a lot of Dune books. I did not read a lot of them. I read the first one. I think that is answered by further Dune books.
Okay. So maybe some fan fiction was like, they're
or not even fan fiction, but like I know that like things kind of went off the rails a little bit, or at least thus I've heard for things.
It did.
But
it got super confusing.
Yeah, and it got a little weird, but like I think that a lot of like those like kind of more sciencey questions kind of like are answered in further Dune books.
Okay,
because like
that makes sense.
What does a massive predator eat? Generally, massive prey. What is there not on this planet? There's fucking nothing.
Yeah,
buildings.
Yeah.
There's sagebrush. I guess this giant thing just eats sagebrush every day. Like,
you know what was really interesting for me was, all right, so we're 10,000 years past whatever cataclysmic thing happens on Earth. There's obviously some incredible technology going on where interstellar travel, we have these massive spacecraft that seem to be pretty damn all powerful. There's lasers that can go through everything. And yet people are using swords and sticks. Where are the projectiles? Where are the phaser guns? It seemed like everything was kind of dumbed down to lightsabers in a way, whereas they could have been using in Star Wars. Here's what I'm trying to say. In Star Wars, they say that they use lightsabers because it's a more elegant gentleman's weapon. They did not do that in Dune. So why aren't they just like firing guns at each other?
So there's actually one of the things that I distinctly remember from the book, and it was actually an excellent scene that I thought they should have included a bunch of scenes, but I thought they should have included this one. There's actually a initial scene where the young Atreides, I'm forgetting his first name. Good job on doing your homework for this, Neil. Boss Cap.
Is it Paul?
Paul.
Basically, he does a gladiatorial bout with a guy that has a kind of disabled or not quite functional shield. So these personal shields are very common throughout the Empire. Any fast-moving thing gets deflected by it. So bullets get deflected by the shield, and bullets get deflected by the shield. That's why the Hunter Seeker that came after him was this sort of slow piercing thing.
Oh,
and they demonstrated that as well when the Harkonnen showed up and were bombing all the ships. They would launch missiles that would move slow through the shield, and that was the whole red and blue thing. Like if blue was too fast, red was dangerous. And so they would bore through the shield. They'd move really slow, and then the second the ship would blow up, it was completely contained inside the shield until the shield generator failed, and then the ships would blow up. So if you go back and watch, and they're bombing the city, all these bombs are hitting and then just slowly falling through and then exploding, and it's a self-contained explosion for a brief period of time. And like the shields are flickering blue and red, and then finally, once the shield generator is destroyed, then the explosion releases.
That makes so much more sense. When I saw that scene, I thought that the bombs were trying to drop through the shield, and the shield was resisting them, except it was only temporary or only able to slow them down. So the bomb was slowly slipping through. But that makes more sense that these shields are for fast-moving items and that something slow could get through.
And that's why it's also hinted at Duncan Idaho, Jason Momoa's character, and Gurney Halleck, Josh Brolin's character. Those two are like super, super, super really good fighters because they know the speeds at which to fight with a sword that can go through the shields without a problem. They're not going too fast. They're not going too slow. They're going fast enough to not be blocked, but slow enough to cut through the shields where everyone that's fighting them is just bouncing off of them.
Oh, funny.
And
one of the big things in like the scene that's in between when the young Atreides fights the big bad Fremen that comes in, he stops when he's got the blade next to his neck, and part of the reason for that is that when you're going to do your killing blow, you actually have to move very slowly to get through. And that's not something that was really explained. And, if you had read the books, you would know, like, oh, okay, like you can't just full bore try and hit or stab someone. You need to get close to them, work through the shield very slowly, and then you can kill them.
Wow.
They showed this again one other time when Duncan Idaho, Jason Momoa's character, was running through and they blow darted him. Those are slow boring darts, but it hit the shield and stopped to the point where he saw it and flicked it away with his sword.
Right.
So, showing that projectiles are kind of useless.
Got it. Okay, that starts to make much more sense. And by the way, is this the first time we've seen Jason Momoa's actual face?
Yes, and his actual face was the only thing that pulled me out of the movie a few times. And I'm like, just put the beard back on, man. Just put the beard back on.
Do you remember that time you showed us pictures of you without a beard?
This is a beard-only podcast, so...
This is a beard-only podcast. Yes, I know what I look like without facial hair.
I'm a little bit afraid at this point that by the next time I trim, my face will have changed. Does that happen?
Oh, it absolutely does. Welcome to age, and you get that nice waddle.
I look like an old man when I so for my job during the pandemic, I actually had to completely shave to wear an N95 all the time, and like literally all I had was a mustache, and I'm like, I look like a fat old man now, and it was terrible.
Oh man, yeah, I'm not looking forward to my next shave. I'm gonna have to at some point, but for now, let's keep it going. Beards are great.
Rock it, brother.
Beards are great.
I mean, it's almost Movember anyway, so.
Oh, sure. Groom your beards. Like, as somebody who's had a beard forever, groom them. Groom them. It doesn't take much. Groom them.
I had let mine go for like 2 months leading up to Wasteland just because I could kind of get away with it. And then it was super scraggly during Wasteland, which looked great. Mm-hmm. But then I got the trim afterwards. Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. But then getting it trimmed afterwards, I was like, oh yeah, I can still look handsome with this thing. Like it kind of works. Like I don't have to look like an ugly hobo.
Yeah, it's hair. Take care of it. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. All right, so this was part 1 of a 2-part series to do the full story. How do you guys feel about how we got left off at the end of Dune Part 1?
I actually really appreciate it because now is when it gets not complicated, but there was so much. It's basically now the story begins essentially. Like this was all lead up to the actual Dune story. So I'm perfectly fine with it being a 2-part series because the next part gets really in depth and complicated and detailed. So
yeah. I mean, it's basically the main character adjusting to being a freeman and his rise in that society. And it's very different than what the first movie was, which is like kind of introducing like the international conflict and him, eventually then being on the run functionally. So now, like the next part should be, if it follows the book, should be him doing his best within that society and rising up in it.
Yeah, pretty wild. Because at the end, we kind of get the true climax, which is the attack on the planet where, the bad family,
Harkonnen.
Bad ugly, the Harkonnen. Yeah, Harkonnen, where they attack and basically take out all of Paul's entire house, right? But then we kind of get this lesser climax of him having to do the duel. And ending it quickly after the duel, I felt like, oh man, that was a little bit like, oh, it's just getting started and you're going to cut it off here, aren't you? And then they did. And I was like, nah. But like, all right. So to kind of take it back to Star Wars, which I think is its closest relative as far as like a world and the way it feels. It's definitely a hero's journey, that kind of thing. Star Wars Episode 4 ended with the destruction of a Death Star. And that's like within a few moments after the Death Star was destroyed, that's where the first movie ended. They could have ended the story there. And I think that one of the reasons they did was because they didn't know if they were going to do well and be able to do more. Meanwhile, this one, they also have no idea if they're going to be able to do this second one. And yet they've kind of ended it when the story is beginning rather than finding that point of like exit. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah. It does.
So,
and like it's a slow thing. His integration of the Fremen society doesn't happen overnight. It's not like he wins one duel and everyone's like bowing down to him. And like he has to like adjust to the desert. He has to like promote himself within the people. So I totally get what you're saying. And like at least in the book, it's a very transcendental thing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Plus, he has all of his Bene Gesserit powers that he's just now coming into now that he's in contact with the spice and all of that as well. So there's lots of coming of age stories that are about to happen.
And also like the voice audio they did for it was fucking great. Like I wouldn't change a thing about it. Like
you mean his magic voice?
Yeah, like yes. Using the psychic power voice was fucking awesome.
It was. I thought it definitely. I think they introduced that really well, and they mixed some visual aspects of it with the audio, and I was like, okay, yep, this is the magic, this is the force, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, it wasn't quite like, do you want to play a game? like a little bit of that, but wasn't. Or going back to Squid Game, it wasn't quite like, oh, you put on a mesh mask and now your voice is like a Darth Vader's.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and they did the good visual thing too, where like they show him speaking, but the voice doesn't sync up with his mouth now.
Yeah,
and there's some echo and delay, and
totally.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that this was Hans Zimmer that did the music earlier. I was actually going to ask you guys that if you knew who it was watching the movie, because
he's got a distinct.
Yeah. Well, I was like, this. It's got to be, the same guy that did. Oh shoot! What am I trying to say here? Inception, right? Because Inception had that wah thing going on. But then he's also the same guy that's done like more classic orchestrations for like Pirates of the Caribbean. So he just proves again that he gets the content, and he really knows how to.
He's seen the most recent Blade Runner. He knows that like just turning up the bass on all of your all your synthesizers, like synth bass, let's just do a bunch of that. Like I'm making fun of him, but I actually fucking loved it in this movie.
Yeah,
and it was a great experience in the theater. Like rocking, like kind of like feeling the vibration in my seat as like the voice happens or as a starship comes overhead was fucking glorious. So
and they also did the opposite of that too, where there were some scenes where they cut all audio except for the one thing that you were supposed to focus on, and it like sucked the air out of the room suspense wise. And so you would leave from like this beautiful score and this blah to like the audience that now themselves is now holding their breath because of the music and
Awesome.
The audio was great.
It had a very wasteland feel, right? Because the desert is a very quiet place.
Yeah.
And bring it back to Wasteland, like it's one of those things that like, there's the roar of the V8 engines. There's like the singing, the dancing, all that stuff. But you get these moments at a Wasteland, and you also get it in this movie of the desert just being sort of this quiet thing, and then like the soft sort of play of the wind coming through and maybe flapping something or the dust moving.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You see that you can hear the tumbleweed because it's so quiet.
Yeah. One of the other things that kind of stuck out at me was the desert walk or the sand walk. What was it called? How you have to walk different so that the worms didn't hear
Detect you.
Yeah. I thought that was a little silly. to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like, you're taking the worms seem to be attracted to any kind of a sound because, like, the thumper. I mean, would the thumper work if it wasn't in rhythm? It probably would work if it wasn't in rhythm.
Sure.
Yeah, like there were a lot of things you could have included from the book. That one I felt was not the best include.
Sure.
Like it kind of took a lot of it took a quote unquote a lot of time because obviously this movie was like packed, like every scene was packed with a bunch of lore and a bunch of like cultural stuff, and it's like, oh, we needed to like take a bunch of time about how you walk from place to place. I'm like, like I would have I probably would have included other things personally.
Yeah, because other than that one time when he had to teach the mom, here's how you sandwalk, nobody sandwalked. At any time other than that. And even when they were doing that right then, there were still a couple of shots where they were just like walking and running. And I was like, I don't think it's that necessary. And they probably could have just been like, oh, there's no sandworms here today, so I guess we lucked out.
Can you imagine how long it would take you to actually get to your destination if that's what you had to do?
You had to like do like a little dance or something everywhere you went.
And it's exhausting to walk through the sand. Anyone that's been to the beach knows that, like, if you park more than 100 feet from where you set up on the beach, it's tough to carry a cooler. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have coolers to carry. They had backpacks, so they were good.
Yeah, both hands were free.
Yeah, but like if they wanted to save 2 minutes out of the movie, they could have just gotten rid of that and been fine. But
I'd agree.
But it was
that.
okay.
Like,
I get what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, like I would have maybe included the scene where it actually explained how the shields work during like a gladiatorial bout, for example.
I mean, yeah, they very briefly did when Josh Brolin's attacked him in the room. But,
no, you're right. You had to pay very close attention. Like, one thing that I felt during this movie is because I had read the book, I felt like I like a lot of my information was already onboarded, and so now it's interesting to hear you talk about it, MakeShift, because like there were things that I'm like, hey, I don't know if they explain the shields very well, and clearly MakeShift is like someone that like saw the movie and didn't read the book. I'm like, oh, that suspicion was 100% confirmed.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we need sandwalk, but like let's not explain how shields work and why there's no projectiles in this. Like, why does no one have a gun?
That was the other thing with the sand compactor when Jason Momoa brought it up first. He's like, "This is a sand compactor," and then at first I was like, "What? I don't know
what is it? What does it do?"
And, it's just moves sand. It's just
a fan.
No, it's
a sandomancer.
Yeah, and he used it to bore his way out of the dune or whatever. But I didn't have any idea. And then he held it to the ground, and I was like, oh, is it a map? Does it just turn the sand into a vibration like a sonar thing? But I guess it just moves.
That was
sand.
really weird. Hey, this is a sand compactor. Let me give you a quick demonstration while we're first introducing this thing. Would be nice.
Right. Yeah. Because at first I was like, sand. Does it convert sand into usable cubes? What is it?
Yeah, right.
What's it compacting? Yeah.
Yeah. So there were a few little things like that, but I think it was all forgiven because the story was just that good. So I don't think we need to do. Oh, by the way, the cast in this was stellar. One person who it took me a minute to figure out because he just looks totally different was Oscar Isaac, who played the father, who also plays Poe in the Star Wars prequels. No,
he's also
sequels.
Ex Machina. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was excellent, by the way.
Yes.
And his voice seemed.
He did. I wish he did that as a good a job as Poe as he was.
I liked him as Poe, but he was like all American, like college student as Poe, right? Yeah. Like he kind of played it like not another teen movie, rather than as an epic sci-fi.
The one that got me was Stellen Skarsgard. I didn't recognize him right away.
Oh wow!
And he was the Baron of the Harkonnen, the heavyset guy that floated.
Yeah.
And as far as like the Baron Harkonnen went, like I thought that was played very well because it kind of showed that he was like sort of evil and gross, but they didn't like spend a bunch of camera time on him. Like you got it very distinctly off of the few shots that you had of him. Like I feel like they did a good job of distilling his character and like a good job of whoever did the editing of like really pulling that across and it not taking a long time.
Right,
Yeah.
like the David Lynch version where he's got the fluctuating boils all over his face and the pus everywhere. Yeah, they didn't do that. They took a good job to. He's a gross dude. Is all.
He's the bad guy. Like he's a bad guy. He's gross. He likes to eat a lot. He kills people. And they did a great job of just like, hey, here's his character, and they offered it up, and I thought in a manner that was very fast, efficient, and like easy to fit into the movie.
Yeah, but another thing where they did not explain the technology, I thought he could just fly for the whole movie. I thought he could just fly.
Oh,
I didn't realize that he had some kind of future wheelchair that helped him get around.
Yeah, the anti-gravity.
That's kind of part of the thing is that like he's like kind of he's a glutton, right? So he likes to eat a lot. He doesn't want to move around, so he's got kind of these little hover. He's got like they kind of in the book. It's more of like a like it's almost like a skirt that he wears. However, I thought the way they did it in the movie was actually very good, and it like did it very well. But then again, I'm kind of onboarding the information that I had from the book to then put it in this thing, and then MakeShift, who didn't read the book, is like, how does this work? Like,
yeah. Too funny. And while we're talking about the book, would you? I mean, is it worth the read for people who haven't read it yet?
I would say absolutely. So it has a bit of a timeless quality to it. And this is sort of something that kind of comes from like Ender's Game, in that the technology is not it's described, but it's not describing like what the headdress looks like. It leaves a lot to the imagination. So they tell you what the technology does, but allows you to fill it in your mind's eye. And I think that is something that lends a little bit of itself to timelessness, because you're like, oh, okay, they pull out a computer, he'll say like, oh, you pull out a computer, and now we can fill that in with like, does it look like a cell phone? Does it look like a tablet?
Right. Yeah.
Or something like that. So I think that like a lot of sci-fi, it doesn't age well, but because that's just the nature of the genre. I definitely would recommend, like if you like the movie or if you just are interested in a little bit of retro sci-fi, I think it's fantastic.
Awesome.
That's story-wise, it is a phenomenal story. I mean, he took the time to build an entire universe. It gets a little, not convoluted. It gets a little heavy, a little thick towards the end of the series, and it gets a little hard to follow, and I found myself having to go back and reread stuff to make the later stuff make sense. But overall, no, I think it's definitely a good read.
Yeah, and I read somewhere that it's full of exposition, which if you're not familiar, exposition's like where
I'm an electrician. What's exposition?
Mongo, no.
It's in filmmaking or in books where you literally are just like spelling out facts or history or storyline or a character's backstory. There's less action and just more telling you all this stuff. And so sometimes that can be considered boring. Like in a movie, it's always better to show it, don't say it. Because if you say it, you're just kind of like, you just have characters telling each other things rather than doing things. So
you mean the opening scene of the David Lynch one where she's literally just facing the camera narrating the first 4 minutes is not good? What do you mean?
I am not upset that style of filmmaking has gone away.
Although, like one thing I will say is that there was zero exposition for was it Vladimir Harkonnen, the big bad, and they portrayed his character fucking excellently. Like I feel like everything you need to know about his character off of the scenes that he was in and just the way he acted.
Totally.
And then like how often did anyone talk about him? No one ever said like, oh, he's like a gross evil dude. No, he literally demonstrated all of that on camera.
Yeah. Totally. And the other thing is, like, when you're dealing with something like fantasy like this or sci-fi, where you're creating worlds, you're creating characters, you're creating societies, there's nothing really to base things on. It's really difficult to not do exposition, because sometimes you just need to say, here's this planet, these people live here, here's some of their societal norms, so you can set up the world. But I think Dune actually did a great job of minimizing as much of that as possible. Of course, we have the narrator start us off in the beginning to kind of set up the Freeman and the planet. What the heck is the planet called? There's so many names in this show.
I'm
literally just calling back. Like, I'm going to call it, like, Big Bad, Hero, like.
Totally. But yeah, they're on the planet, the one that is nicknamed Dune. I think that's appropriate, right?
Sure.
I believe the name of the planet is Arrakis, but I might be wrong.
Yeah. Okay, you're right.
Yes.
Yeah. So they set up kind of the history of Arrakis, and then they get into the movie. And once they're there, I don't think we go back to any real exposition other than, like, here's this new item, here's how it works, here's this new magic, here's how it works. So they get through things really quick without doing a whole lot of explaining, which is great.
Yeah. I felt like they could have done, like, instead of doing the Freeman sand walking or the Fremen sand walking, like,
that really bothered him.
Because like, my only real problem or something that I would have liked to have seen in the movie was showing the Atreides household trying to adapt themselves to Dune. And this is something that happened in the book. Because in the movie, it's like, okay, day one, they come to Arrakis. Day two, like, the spice mine, like, accident happens, and day three they get their shit bombed by the Harkonnens. And it's like, oh man, they've been on this planet for 20 minutes in the movie. Like,
that's true.
And so I would have liked to see, like, a few more scenes of them kind of adjusting to the life there, like, because the Atreides household really tries to adapt to the climate. They try to talk to the Fremen, and, like, that is demonstrated a little bit, but I think, like, one or two more scenes of that would have been nice to establish, like, hey, we're good guys, we're trying to come in and, like, do a good thing on this planet. Yeah,
that's a really good point, because Jason Momoa's character, I think it's Idaho, is that right? He's named
Duncan,
after a potato. Yeah.
Duncan, Idaho, yep.
So he gets there beforehand to kind of, like, clear the LZ, and he is adapted. He's, like, taken on a bunch of the culture. So we kind of get stripped of that by not having followed his character at this point, because he just went down and he was like, okay, everything's fine now. And he's like learned all the culture.
Come on down, House Atreides. Yeah. This place is totally safe.
Yeah, it's all set, and we're buddies now. Yep. But yeah, I agree with you. I wish that we did see a little bit more of that, like, acclimating to not just the culture of the Fremen, but also to the climate, because they kept saying you can't be out during the day, and then they were repeatedly out during the day, and no one was, like, sweating bullets or anything.
Yeah, there's that scene where Paul's walking out and he's watching that guy water all the palm trees.
Right.
And he's like, you shouldn't be out in the day, and he's like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
was the whole conversation. I'm good.
And so I was like, why are you watering them during the day, dude? You got to water, like as a SoCal native, I know you're supposed to water your plants at night. Like,
yeah, you're just gonna burn them up, man.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, we got to kind of wrap this up because we're going a little long. But here's what I'm going to do. We did the story, directing, acting, look, and music. Let's just do them all at once. Thumbs up, thumbs down on this movie, guys.
I would say thumbs up. An absolute thumbs up.
Yeah. I'm going to go with thumbs up overall. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, 100%. As someone that came into this knowing absolutely nothing about Dune, I was absolutely amazed by the world building, the characters, and of course, I've made the connection to Star Wars several times, but I've since learned that Star Wars is based on Dune, not the other way around.
Yeah, 1987 versus 1984.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super excited about this. I cannot wait to see more. I know that it's actually planned to be a trilogy if everything goes well, because there's a follow-up book. Is that right, Boss Cap?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, there's quite a few books that come off of this, and they get successively weirder. So
they do. They like I said, it gets a little thick towards the end.
Oh, so it's like the Alien franchise, huh? Like, once you set up the rules, just bust them over and over again.
Just keep adding more rules. That's all.
Yeah, blender writing, man.
So like literally, Lost took a A patient was like, "Don't answer questions, just introduce more questions."
Yeah, more questions,
Yeah.
please. How are we going to get people to watch next week? I don't know. Dumbfound them.
Yeah, let's put a polar bear on the island.
Yeah. And one other thing is, so it took 4 years for them to actually make this movie. Legendary picked it up in 2017 as they bought the rights to be able to make the movie in 2017. It took them 3 years. They shot it in 2019. It was supposed to release in 2020. That got delayed because of COVID. So anyway, it took 4 years for this movie to get made. Hopefully it doesn't take 4 years for the sequel to get made, because do you guys remember when Avatar came out and they were like, we're going to make a whole bunch of these, and then they just never did?
Well, it's because it was a terrible movie. Wait, which movie?
I loved Avatar.
Wait, Avatar with the aliens or the Airbender Avatar?
I'm
Shyamalan or the...
I'm talking about Dances with Smurfs.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That was a good one. I was thinking the M. Night Shyamalan Avatar Airbender.
Gotcha. Yeah, not.
Yeah, the like
Avatar
plug your
last
neck
one.
into aliens movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one.
Okay, that one I appreciated. And they did a second one, right? It's just not out yet.
Well, they've been talking about it forever, and I thought I remembered them shooting it.
Oh, I thought I remembered them shooting the sequel as well.
I heard that all the CGI got depleted from other movies, and they're waiting for the CGI to come back, like boil back up from the landscape, so they can harvest it for that movie.
Oh, they're waiting for Star Wars to figure out how it ends, right?
Yeah. Too funny. Anyway, I hope you guys out there all enjoyed Dune. I know I enjoyed the heck out of it. Any other last thoughts here, guys?
I do know that. So this is kind of a plug, a brief plug. Me and War Chief Grimm drink.
Oh, drink. Thank you.
Actually went to film school together. That's how we met. And
awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. No, we went to film school together.
I see. It was just to get us.
Yeah, to get us to drink. No, we went to film school together. We've done a lot of this stuff, and it's going into like Dune and even Squid Game, and knowing the amount of effort and time it takes to go into these, and the amount of takes you have to do over and over, and I am appreciating the content that's coming out lately. So yeah,
filmmaking is off the hook these days. That's absolutely true.
Yes, it is.
Like cheers to all of the IATSE brothers, sisters, and non-binary that are putting in the fucking work on this. And are fighting for their rights. Yeah,
100%. Shoot, man, if we got to talk about Rust real quick too, because God damn it, hire professionals on this stuff. And when you're talking about union workers in film, I'm not union, but I don't do big projects like this. I do like YouTube. But when it comes to like making these big films, the professionals they get hired for a reason. And, when you're talking about life or death situations, don't leave it up to inexperienced people.
As someone who's done stunt work in Hollywood, I've gotten to work with a lot of the union guys and stuff. I appreciate it all. Those guys, I know it seems tedious to take the extra precautions to do stuff, but it saves lives. It literally saves lives. So yeah.
Yeah, that's why everyone has one job on a set, and you don't do anyone else's job. Anyway, before we get too deep into that, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. This was really fun.
It absolutely.
Yeah,
was.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to get now at least an hour and a half of content on just a couple of shows.
I guess you'll have to edit me out.
Did you turn your recorder on? Because I didn't.
I've noticed every time I'm part of this, it's a 2-part show. So.
But yeah, this was a lot of fun. There's never been a better time to be alive if you're into like movies and stories, because we have an endless supply. And it's really great that such awesome projects keep coming out, especially during this continued COVID world where having great entertainment available is really important. And my last thought real quick is there's another Jason Momoa project I just got turned on to. Thank you, Rebekah Leib, for turning me on to it. But it's called See. And in this one, it is kind of a tribal future where everyone has lost the ability to see. Everyone's blind. And they just launched the second season. So since I just got turned on to it. I'm on like episode 2 of season 1. So far, I'm absolutely loving it. Again, Momoa is freaking talented as all heck. But there's a really cool look to it. It's got a lot of like tribal stuff, but there's also some magic. And they do a really good job with blindness on it. Just some really clever stuff. Anyway, so guys, check that out if you get the chance. And I think that's it. Anything else, guys?
That's all I've got.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Rad.
I'm gonna go watch Awake.
Yeah, please. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. If you hated it, share it with your enemies on the back of a giant sandworm who's always looking for something to eat. And I'll see you next time, survivors. Stay alive.
And days and days and days and days.
Hey survivors, MakeShift here to remind you that the Apocalypse Post is brought to you in no small way by our Patreon supporters. Join the ranks for early access and exclusive content with support levels now named for fancy Fallout-ridden factions like the $2 per creation Drifter or the $7 Wastelander. Knowing you've got my back has helped me dedicate more time to this channel, spreading love of the post-apocalypse and less time on stupid real-world stuff. Sign up right now at patreon.com/theapocalypsepost.